What is up, guys? Welcome back to Tidal Gardens. If this is your first time to this channel, Tidal Gardens is a coral farm located in Copley, Ohio, and here we talk about all things coral reef related. Normally, we spend a lot of our time talking about coral, but this video is going to kind of focus on one of my friend's aquariums. He has had his tank featured on this channel for quite some time, but recently he's gotten a new aquarium, and it is a major upgrade. Right now, it is in a very early stage, and it's kind of nice to look at a tank at this stage, which is still very much a blank slate and still very clean looking, so we can kind of go over the details. Because once a tank gets kind of lived in, let's be honest, it's a little bit messy looking after a while. This particular aquarium was made by Derrick at Ocean Life Aquarium. That's down in the Orlando area. Derrick usually works through the local fish stores in that area, so there's not a lot of direct-to-consumer business that he does. However, I talked to him, and so if you guys are interested in getting a custom tank made by him, I'll put his contact information in the description below. Nathan had a main show tank made. He had a frag tank as well as a glass sump that's situated underneath the main display. They were all 3/4 inches thick, super heavy. Luckily, Nathan had a lot of help to get all of these tanks into the house. As for the size of this aquarium, it is 9 feet long by 40 inches front to back, and it's 26 inches tall. So the size of this aquarium in terms of volume, it's in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 gallons, something like that. It's been about a month or so, but Nathan was able to get this guy all plumbed in, and he worked on an aquascape very similar to what we did for our tanks, which is using Marco rock and gluing it together with a combination of sand, super glue, a little bit of the mortar, and it's a really cool way to make these custom rock shapes. Nathan has also decided to speed up the seeding process by grabbing some biological media from his original system. These blocks, I believe, are made by Brightwell, and they've already been pre-seeded with all the beneficial bacteria from his original tank. He spaced them all out through both the sump as well as the show tank, and once that all gets aged a bit, he'll be removing those. He has a ton of other pieces of equipment, but those aren't installed on this tank just yet because his original tank is still up and running with all of its corals and fish and everything like that. So you're not going to be seeing those items installed on this tank just yet. But as this build progresses, you can expect to see an automatic water change system make its way back over, as well as some monitoring and dosing from Alcatronic. What's also very nice about establishing a completely new system like this is you get out from under the snake pit of wires and equipment that just build up over the years. This system is no different in that regard. It was definitely getting a little bit bird's nesty back there, so it was a nice opportunity to go ahead and streamline everything and plan out in advance a lot of wire management. The lighting that Nathan has gone with are Orphic Atlantics. He originally just had one of these fixtures over his previous frag system, and he was really pleased with the growth and coloration of his corals. In his original show tank, he was going with some very old Aqualumination Soul Blue fixtures. So moving now to these Orphic Atlantics, pretty substantial upgrade in that regard. He's going with 5 over top of the show tank and 2 over his frag tank. We've been talking a little bit about how best to suspend these lights, and this is very much still a work in progress. But the idea is that he would kind of have this floating canopy from which the lights would extend down from. What I'm showing you here is already different now because since then he's come back over to my place and he's seen how we did our most recent frag systems, and he really liked going with something that looks more like a rail. So long story short, it is a slight modification off of what you're seeing. The idea behind these enclosures is it's fairly simple to hang lights down elegantly, but it's a whole other thing to then hide all of like the wiring and the power bricks and all of that stuff. This hanging canopy serves as pretty much a place to store all of that and hide it from view. Now you can see that there's a gap between the enclosure and the ceiling. That to a large degree is going to get filled by some crown molding, so that will be even lower profile. The other benefit to having this hanging canopy above the tank is that it also allows for hiding power for things like power heads. Right now, it's pretty clear that the closed loops are doing a good job of providing flow, but if ever in the future he needs to add more in the way of power heads, it would be pretty trivial to extend down power heads from up there. Let's talk about this sump for just a little bit and why he's gone towards sectioning his sump. It's a very popular thing, and it's a philosophical difference as well compared to like my systems, because in his tanks, he knows exactly what he wants to do, and it's going to be fairly static. There's not going to be any drastic change of plans. Whereas in my systems, there's never plans really to begin with. It may seem like I know what I'm doing. However, plans change here all the time, and I wanted maximum flexibility. Nathan is going from maximum organization. Going from left to right in the sump, there is a section for the drain lines to come in. There is a filter sock section after that. Then there's a skimmer compartment, and the purpose of the skimmer compartment is to maintain a static level, because when you have an internal skimmer, one that sits in the water, if you have fluctuating water level, you're going to get fluctuating skimmer performance just because of the sensitivity of the pump to back pressure. If you have an external skimmer, you really don't run into this issue at all. But for internal skimmers, you want its section of water to always be at the same height. After that, you have the baffles, which essentially act as a bubble trap, and that leads to the return pump chamber. Now, an issue that I have with return pump chambers is oftentimes they are designed too small from the get-go. The issue that you run in with a return pump chamber that's too small is if you have a return pump that's capable of some serious horsepower, it will too quickly drain out that section and it'll start sucking in air. In Nathan's case, he is going to be using an Abyss A200, which I guarantee could suck that thing dry. And not only can it suck that thing dry, it can provide more flow than his drainage is even capable of. So in normal use circumstances, though, it's not a problem. He just has to dial back that pump a little bit, which you can very easily with an Abyss. Moving on to the Frag Tank. This thing measures 60 inches by 30 inches by 18 inches tall. So that's 60 inches long, 30 wide, 18 tall. There is a single Vectra L2 closed loop, and this tank drains back into the same shared sump. You have a sump with all the life support, filtration, and everything, managing both the Frag Tank as well as the show tank. For flow, he's using closed loops as well as some flow from the return pump. The closed loops are Vectra L2s, and he recently purchased a Abyss A200 to serve as the return pump. These closed loops have a strainer on one end, and on the other, it has a 5-way cross that distributes the flow. And on each end of the 4-way, he's installed some lock line, and that gives him some flexibility as to where this flow is going to be directed. As his aquascape gets more situated, it's going to be very difficult to see any of this closed loop assembly. Alright guys, that pretty much does it for this overview of Nathan's new aquarium. If you haven't seen what his tank used to look like, I'll put a link in the description to a playlist of some tanks that we have taken a look at in the past. We've probably done, I don't know, at least six or so videos of his past aquariums. It's worth checking out and seeing kind of the timeline of how this all came to be. All right, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time. Happy reefing.